People are increasingly living in subdivisions in Brown Hill. The subdivisions north of the freeway are expanding and are situated between bushland to the west and the east and open farmland to the north. At present, there are 6 defined subdivisions of varying ages of completion. All of this area is designated a bushfire prone area. Springs Road again is the only through road to the south. Kevin, could you provide us with your evaluation of the bushfire risk to the households living in these new subdivisions north of the freeway, such as Currumbin Estate?
I guess these subdivisions have a mixture of both being semi-urban in the sense the houses are relatively close together, but the houses are then set in a rural setting. So here where we're surrounded by a combination of farmland and bushland, a fire has a potential to build to quite a large size and then impact on this subdivision, which is quite different to say somewhere in the centre of Ballarat. So what we're dealing with here, I guess, is under extreme or catastrophic weather conditions, a fire could start out towards Creswick or Clunes, 20, 30, 40 kilometres away, and develop to quite a large size. And then by the time it impacts on the Creswick State Forest here to our west, um, it will have quite an amount of energy. And when it runs up the hills that across the divide here, it acts as a launch ramp to throw massive numbers of embers forward. And so somewhere like Corriban State and other estates in this Brown Hill area here potentially could be just bombarded with spot fires. And those spot fires will be in people's backyards, they'll be in parks, they'll be in roadsides. And in a few minutes, the whole area will be basically have fire in it. So it's not the fire front that's moved in here, it's basically the coalescence of hundreds of small spot fires. And that's part of what people living in an area like this would need to deal with on that day. And that will add to the confusion, I guess, as to what you're able to do here. Within the subdivision itself, there would be a lot you could do to defend your property because there'll be small fires that you're dealing with to start with. It's not a big fire front, but it's going to go on for hours. So you have to have a fair amount of stamina and you're going to have to keep your hydration levels up. And you're going to have to be mentally prepared for it, physically and mentally prepared for that. Um, but one of the things that is likely to happen here, and we have the experience of the Canberra fires in 2003 and more recently the Wye River fire in 2015, where a lot of the houses were lost from house to house ignition. So people's gardens burning, setting fire to the house, and the house is the biggest fuel load of all in the environment. It's not the bush. And when a house catches fire, the heat that's generated from that fire is immense. Now, normally, if you have a house fire, the fire brigade is able to restrict the fire to the one house and stop it spreading. But in a bushfire, the fire brigade and all the firefighting forces are scattered widely across the landscape because such a big area is involved. And so you have to be much more self-reliant, either through design or through your protective actions. So you need to be talking to your neighbours to make sure that they understand the risks and perhaps start doing things like redesigning how your garden has been developed and maintained, the sort of fences you build, the way in which you have sort of structures out in your backyard. Um, there needs to be a community effort, I guess, to make the community as safe as possible. But when houses are closer than about 10 metres to each other, they become a real threat for their neighbours. And that's something that's not taken into account, even though some of these houses in these subdivisions have been built to the Australian standard AS 3959. The That's for the individual building in isolation. It's not considering a house fire next door to it. It's only considering a bushfire. So even though you may think you've been built your house to a high standard, it's not necessarily going to withstand a house-to-house ignition circumstance. So people need to be preparing, they need to be looking at their house, they need to be looking at their neighbours' properties and talking to their neighbours to come up with a way of dealing with it. The other thing you have in a rural subdivision like this is the access and egress to the area. Your plan may be not to be here when the fire comes through, but the reality is that you've only got a few options in terms of the roads that you can use to get in and out of here. And if there are fires in the area, you only need one branch to fall off a tree or one tree to fall across the road or a power line to come down to block that road. And so you're then stuck in the area. And if you haven't done adequate preparation in your neighbourhood or your property at least, then you haven't got anywhere to go to. So it's really important to prepare your house, even if your plan is to leave. And there will be another circumstance where fire is more likely to impact on you, and in fact is under perhaps high or very high or even severe fire weather conditions, where a fire may start quite close to your property. So it may only take an hour from the time of ignition to the time it starts impacting on your property. And if you haven't done good preparations, it's going to be even hard under those considerably milder conditions to defend your house. So regardless of whether you think you may or may not be subjected to a catastrophic fire, chances are you will be subjected to a bushfire of lower intensity, and you need to be prepared for either eventuality. And hoping to be able to escape the area in the event is, you can plan to do that, but you have to have a backup plan, which will be depending on your property. There may be reasons why you can't actually get out at the time that you really would like to.
Thank you.